What happens when two powerhouse women in entertainment clash over respect, legacy, and the truth about the music business? The tension was thick enough to slice through when Gladys Knight, the legendary Empress of Soul, sat down with Queen Latifah for what was expected to be a celebration of her remarkable career. Instead, viewers witnessed one of the most fiery interviews in talk show history, ending with Gladys Knight doing something she had never done in all her years on television, walking off the set mid-conversation. The confrontation uncovered long-standing wounds in the music world and showed just how far some artists will go to guard their legacy. Before we dive into this dramatic story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about what you think when artists stand up for themselves during interviews. The atmosphere inside Queen Latifah's studio was charged with anticipation. Gladys Knight, dressed flawlessly in a dark navy blazer with her signature poise, settled into the cushioned interview chair across from Queen Latifah. The production team had spent weeks preparing for this moment, knowing they had booked one of the most respected figures in music for a personal conversation about her 6-decade career. Queen Latifah began with her trademark warm smile. "Gladys Knight, the Empress of Soul herself, thank you so much for being here. I have to say, growing up, your voice was the soundtrack to so many moments in my household." Gladys smiled and nodded gently, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "Thank you, Dana. It's always special to talk with fellow artists who truly understand the journey." The interview started smoothly with Queen Latifah asking about Gladys's early days performing with the Pips, her leap into solo success, and the challenges of being a black woman breaking barriers in the music industry during the 60s and 70s. Gladys answered with the wisdom and elegance that had made her beloved across generations. Then Queen Latifah leaned forward and asked, "I think what's remarkable about your career is how you've managed to stay relevant across decades. But I have to ask, and I hope you don't mind me being direct, there have been reports about tensions with newer artists. Some say older legends look down on today's generation." Gladys's expression shifted slightly, just a faint tightening in her eyes. "I'm not sure what you're referring to exactly, but I've always believed in uplifting other artists, especially young black women trying to carve their space." Queen Latifah pressed gently. "Well, there was that interview you gave a while back, where it seemed you suggested today's R&B lacks the authenticity of your time. Some took that as dismissing today's singers." The energy in the room instantly cooled. Gladys straightened in her chair, her voice calm but edged with steel. "I think there's been some misunderstanding. I've never dismissed anyone's artistry. What I've said is that the industry itself has changed, and not always for the better. In my day, we had to prove ourselves night after night, song after song. We didn't have auto-tune or social media shortcuts to help build careers." Queen Latifah's eyebrows lifted slightly. "But surely you're not saying today's artists don't work hard, or that technology takes away from talent." Gladys's tone grew firmer. "I'm saying when you can fix everything in post-production, when fame can come from a 15-second clip instead of years grinding in tiny venues, the bond between artist and craft shifts. That's not an insult. It's an observation." The audience could feel the rising tension. Queen Latifah, known for her careful interview style, didn't let up. "But Gladys, don't you think that sounds a bit elitist? Like you're gatekeeping what counts as true artistry." Gladys let out a humorless laugh. "Elitist? Dana, I grew up in the projects of Atlanta. I've been performing since I was 8. Every bit of respect I have, I bled for it. If pointing out that the industry's standards have dropped makes me elitist, then fine. I'll wear that proudly." Queen Latifah quickly replied, "I didn't mean to offend you, Gladys. I just want to understand your view of how the industry has evolved." Gladys's voice rose for the first time. "Evolved? Is that what we're calling it? When young women are told to strip down to sell records. When lyrics are so crude I can't play them around my grandchildren. When shows reward gimmicks over raw ability. That's not evolution, that's devolution." The studio went silent. Queen Latifah looked at her producers, then back at her guest. "I think you're being too broad. There are so many talented artists today pushing boundaries and creating beautiful music." Gladys nodded slightly. "Of course there are. But too often they're lost in a flood of manufactured nonsense. And when I point that out, people call me bitter or out of touch. I'm not out of touch. I'm experienced. That's the difference." Queen Latifah's tone sharpened. But isn't it fair to let each generation find its voice? Some older artists said the same about hip-hop when it came up. Gladys's eyes flashed. Hip-hop was revolutionary because it gave a voice to people who weren't being heard. It was raw. It was real. It was needed. What's revolutionary about a computer doing half the work? The temperature in the studio spiked. Queen Latifah pushed back. But Gladys, don't you think you're romanticizing the past? The industry always had problems. There were manufactured acts in your day, too. Gladys's composure finally cracked. Manufactured? Are you going to compare the Supremes, the Temptations, Martha and the Vandellas to what's being sold today? Those artists could truly sing, perform, and had something to say. Queen Latifah challenged. And you don't think today's artists have something to say? What about Beyoncé, Alicia Keys, or even Lizzo, who promotes self-love and body positivity? Gladys snapped back sharply. Don't you dare lecture me about Beyoncé! That woman has more talent in her finger than most of these so-called stars have in their entire bodies. But even she gets trapped in a system that pressures her to be more provocative, more controversial. It's heartbreaking. Queen Latifah's expression hardened. So you're saying she's selling out? I'm saying the industry forces everyone to sell out a little, Gladys replied, gripping the chair tightly. And when veterans like me point it out, we're labeled bitter has-beens whose time is up. No one called you a has-been, Gladys, Queen Latifah said. Gladys's voice was cold. When you call me elitist for having standards, what do you mean? That my opinion no longer matters because I'm from another era? Queen Latifah shifted. That's not what I meant, and I think you know that. Do I? Gladys leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Because from where I sit, it sounds like you didn't invite me here to honor me. You brought me here to tear me down, to make me look like some bitter old woman who can't handle change. The crowd sat frozen as Queen Latifah tried to pull things back. Gladys, I truly didn't want this. I respect your contribution to music. Gladys laughed bitterly. Respect? Dana, I was headlining before you were born. I've won Grammys, been inducted into the Hall of Fame, sold millions of records. I don't need your respect. I've already earned it from generations of fans who know real artistry. Queen Latifah's frustration broke through. And that's the problem younger artists mention. That attitude that because you came first, you're automatically more valid than those who came after. Gladys's voice thundered. You want to talk about attitude? How about ambushing a guest with questions designed to humiliate? That's not conversation. That's entrapment. Nobody ambushed you, Queen Latifah shot back. These are real questions about things you've said. Twisted things, taken out of context, Gladys retorted. Just like you're twisting now. I never said young artists don't work. I said the industry has changed, and not for the better. But nuance doesn't get ratings, does it? You want drama? Queen Latifah grew defensive. I'm just trying to have an honest talk. Gladys stood abruptly, her chair sliding back. There's nothing honest about this setup. You wanted a villain in your generational debate, and you chose me. Well, congratulations. The crew scrambled as she pulled off her microphone. Queen Latifah looked stunned. Gladys, please sit down. Let's finish this like adults. Adults? Gladys's voice boomed. Adults don't blindside each other on national TV. Adults don't disrespect legends just for ratings. Queen Latifah rose too, her mask slipping. Maybe this is the problem. You can't handle being challenged because you're used to everyone kissing your ring. The words hit like thunder. Gladys stared at her. Kissing my ring? Is that what you think this is? Ego? Her voice cut sharp. I've been fighting for respect since before you knew what a studio looked like. And never once have I demanded anyone kiss anything of mine. Queen Latifah's voice rose. Then why can't you accept the industry has moved beyond what you represent? Because some things were better, Gladys shot back. When you had to really sing to be called a singer. When music was about souls connecting, not just numbers, Queen Latifah threw up her hands. There it is again, elitist nostalgia. Gladys declared, if wanting excellence is elitist, I'll take it. If insisting artists sing without machines is gatekeeping, I'll stand at that gate proudly. If believing music should uplift makes me old-fashioned, I'll wear that badge gladly. The tension in the room was electric. Queen Latifah, instead of easing up, pushed harder. Gladys, you're living in a fantasy if you think everything was perfect back then. There were scandals, labels ripping off artists, racism worse than now. Gladys's eyes blazed. A fantasy? I performed in venues where I couldn't use the same bathroom as my own audience. I signed contracts giving me pennies while men got rich off my voice. I was told I was too dark, too soulful to succeed. Don't you dare call my struggle a fantasy! Queen Latifah's voice turned icy. I'm saying your perspective may be clouded by survivorship bias. You made it, so you think the system worked. Gladys nearly laughed in disbelief. You think I survived by luck? Every success I had came from talent, grit, and refusing to compromise. Something not everyone in this era understands. The jab hit Queen Latifah hard. Are you saying my career is manufactured? That I didn't earn my spot? Gladys studied her. I'm saying your generation had opportunities because mine broke barriers. And yet here you are, tearing down the very people who cleared the path for you. Queen Latifah protested. I'm not tearing anyone down. I'm asking about your comments on today's artists. Gladys's voice boomed. You invited me here under the excuse of celebrating me, only to paint me as a relic. That's not journalism. That's character assassination, Queen Latifah snapped. Maybe the issue is you can't take accountability. You've been on a pedestal so long you forgot what being challenged feels like. The room froze. Gladys stood still, her legendary poise intact. When she spoke, her quiet voice carried like thunder. Accountability? I've been judged for every note, every performance, every interview my whole life. I don't need accountability from someone who invited me here just to disrespect me. Queen Latifah crossed her arms. I wanted a real conversation, not a fluff piece. Gladys's voice grew stronger. A real conversation means respect. It means listening, not waiting for a gotcha. It means knowing that disagreeing with today's music doesn't make me a bitter has-been. But that's how you come across, Queen Latifah blurted. Like you're bitter that your time is over. The air grew heavier. Gladys whispered, My time is over. Let me tell you something. Legends don't expire. Icons don't fade. I'm not clinging to relevance. I am living history, and I deserve better than this. She removed her mic and headed off set. Queen Latifah called after her, panicked. Gladys, wait, let's start over. Gladys turned one last time, framed in the lights. Some things can't be restarted. Some words can't be taken back. In 60 years, I've never walked out on an interview, but I've never been this disrespected either. You're really walking out over this? Queen Latifah asked. Gladys replied firmly, I'm walking out because you ambushed me for ratings, because you disregarded my legacy, and because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to participate in your own humiliation. And with that, Gladys Knight, the Empress of Soul, walked out with her head held high, leaving a stunned host and a silent audience. The cameras lingered on Queen Latifah, standing alone, the weight of what had just unfolded written on her face. The moment exposed something powerful about respect, legacy, and how generations view their craft. It showed that even legends have breaking points, and sometimes the most dignified answer to disrespect is to walk away. What do you think about artists standing up for themselves when they feel disrespected in interviews? Should icons like Gladys Knight be shielded from tough questions, or should all public figures accept being challenged? Don't forget to hit subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.